U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff has made a big claim on the third anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. He says the U.S. is now nearing a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine. Now, speaking to CNN, Witkoff said that any potential deal would require both territorial and economic concessions from both sides. He looked back at what he called a cogent and substantive negotiations framed in Istanbul Protocol Agreement in April back in 2022 and said that it can become a guideline for peace agreement between Ukraine and Russia now in 2025. The New York Times had earlier published copies of the draft agreement, sparking interest in what the agreement entails and its significance. Viewers, the Istanbul Agreement emerged from peace talks that began in 2022, shortly after Russia invaded Ukraine. And that happened in Belarus, followed by a second round of negotiations in Istanbul in Turkey. One of the most significant sticking points in that agreement was the status of Crimea. And since Russia and Ukraine could not reach a mutual understanding regarding this region, it never came into existence. The agreement decided to exclude discussions on Crimea for the next 10 to 15 years, as per the agreement. Among other points was Ukraine's demand for NATO membership, while Russia insisted on Kiev's neutrality. Also, there were disagreements with Russia on the size of the Ukraine army. Witkoff has said that Trump wants to be the peacemaking president. But the question is, how? Russia and US teams plan to meet again this week after a meeting last week in Saudi. Trump has said he does not consider it essential for Ukraine to be present at negotiations aimed at ending the country's war with Russia. All right, for more on this, our correspondent Anas Mallick joins us live from Kiev with more on this. Anas, it's been 3 years from that day, 24th February 2022, when the invasion took place. You've been tracking the developments all through these years with on and off visits to Kiev. 3 years down the line, what has changed? Give us what you've picked up as of now.
Well, I think if 3 years are to be defined, it can say it's 3 years of resilience, 3 years of support and 3 years of assistance for the Ukrainian people and by the Ukrainian people. And of course, that gives into the Ukrainian leadership as well. Where I'm standing 3 years ago, this used to wear a deserted look. Every now and then there used to be air raid sirens, but now the Ukrainian side have come to terms with this grim reality of war that is upon them, that continues upon them, and that continues to inflict losses on them. Right now, what you see behind me, it's hustling, bustling Kyiv. World leaders continue to arrive. I think if 3 years are to be summed up, I think the ideal most or the best word would be that 3 years of resistance for the Ukrainian people. They have been long 3 years. Shivan?
Anas, from what I gauged from where you're standing, it seems like a regular day for a country which has been ridden with a war since 3 years. It's a nice sunny day behind you. Traffic seems to be normal as usual, but Zelensky says he is willing to step down. How are Ukrainians looking at this statement, if you've picked up any reactions?
Well, the Ukrainians say that in case if President Zelensky wants to step down for these security guarantees, it's more of a politically aimed domestic audience move that he's looking at. But if it comes at the cost of ending the war, then they're all up for it. Primarily because they're tired. They're tired of the losses that they have been facing on almost everyday basis, if not on daily basis, then on weekly basis, and the lack of strategy that Ukrainian President Zelensky had opted for. The reason it has resulted in the a prolongment of this war or elongated conflict. With that being said, we've seen that time and again world leaders have been arriving here in the capital city of Kyiv in Ukraine, and today as well there are 13 world leaders who will be here. In fact, most of them who are already here. That includes the presidents and prime ministers of different countries, including the head of the EU Commission as well. So largely, while the people look at this statement with cautious optimism, they're also hopeful that in case if this statement or if this move leads to the resolution of the ongoing conflict, then they might just well be up for it and will welcome any such move. Shriman?
Anas, as far as all the diplomatic developments are concerned, a lot of activities are taking place. You mentioned them briefly, from EU leaders there in Kiev, from Macron heading to Washington. Ukraine not being part of the talks between US and Russia, and of course all the sticking points which are expected to resurface this time again if they go back to the agreement from 2022. Give us an update on what the diplomatic front seems to be moving towards. Anything else that you've picked up?
Well, primarily Ukrainians would want to be optimistic. They say that any talks on Ukraine or Ukraine solution without Ukraine being in the room, it will not be acceptable. But then they have to come with come to terms with the fact that the US side has indeed been arm twisting them. The US side has been exerting pressure, and I think that is the other reality that the Ukrainians, the common Ukrainian people, they have understood it, but the political elite or the ruling elite, they are yet to come to terms with it. And that is one of the reasons as well that while there continues to be a disconnect from the common people to the Ukrainian leadership. As I said, the common people would want a resolution of the conflict with some sort of a compromise if it leads to the end or cessation of hostilities immediately. But of course the ruling elite, they think otherwise, and that is the reason there is this disconnect that has been always talked about. Shivan?
Disconnect definitely exists, but that resistance continues. And as you mentioned, you've seen this place where you're standing and reporting from in Kiev, in Ukraine, over the years from 2022 to 2025, Anas. And what the place which once looked deserted seems to be living a regular life now, making peace with where they are, but obviously remain defiant in terms of getting to a peaceful negotiation and a conclusion at the earliest. That was Anas Mallick getting us the latest from Kiev as the war completes 3 years today on 24th of February 2022. Anas Mallick from Kiev.